And so, really what it boils down to is this is a story about belonging. Because at the beginning of the book, Tracy longs to belong. And I think we want to belong to something. And it's also about longing. And maybe it's about longing for the way things were, or maybe we're longing for what we never had. So that's sort of, and of course, there's some murdery stuff thrown in.
Welcome to our latest episode of Bookreporter Talks To, where our guest today is Mary Kay Andrews, and we are going to be talking about her latest summer book, Summers at the Saint. This is an instant Bookreporter Bets On selection. I enjoyed reading it on the deck a couple of weeks ago. Remember, it's still April here in the Northeast, and I was laying out there in my bathing suit because it was that warm, which just shows that the tagline, "Summer begins with MKA," is absolutely on point, because I was outside reading in my bathing suit and the book was delivering. The book was delivering and the summer was happening. So there we go. We're recording this before pub date. And because we're doing that, before she heads out on her big book tour, I'm going to catch her on book tour, folks. I wanted to get this done because I wanted to make sure we had a great interview with MKA. Since we don't have our review, I'm going to go to a couple of trade reviews. In a starred, that means it's really great, people. Publishers Weekly called it a mesmerizing mix of mystery and romance, gripping mystery and swoony romance. I just love that. Fans and newcomers alike will be riveted. Starred review from Publishers Weekly. And Library Journal said another fun, heartwarming, and intriguing summer read. And all those definitions are right. I am going to go on record as saying this is her best summer book to date, following her best holiday book to date that came out last year. So with that intro, welcome, MKA.
Thanks, Carol. Great to be with you.
Great to see you. Really, really good. So let's start with you telling us about Summers at the Saint so that I don't have to sit there and figure out all these different plot lines. You're on.
Well, Summers at the Saint is the story of Tracy Eddings. She's a young widow. Her husband was tragically killed in a plane crash a few years earlier. And Tracy runs a very high-end resort on the south coast of Georgia, inspired by, but not, Sea Island, which is a very iconic vacation destination in the South, all over the country, really. And Tracy, it's the start of summer. It's right before Memorial Day, and she has a huge dilemma. She can't hire enough people. She can't staff up the resort because her staff can't afford to live on the island. And it's a problem that's everywhere, any kind of resort area. And so she's facing this dilemma. She's got other stuff going on in her life. She has scheming in-laws that are trying to kind of rip her business away from her. And so all of this sort of comes to a head at the beginning of this summer. She hires some young people to work at, the name of the hotel is the Saint Cecilia. So that's where the Saint comes from. Everybody on the coast calls it the Saint. And Tracy comes from a pretty humble background. She lives on the other side of the river. So she comes from a working class family. Her family never could have belonged at the Saint. So her kind of people were ain'ts. And Tracy meets, as a 19-year-old, meets and marries the Saint of all saints, the owner's son, Hoke. And so, really what it boils down to is this is a story about belonging. Because at the beginning of the book, Tracy longs to belong. And I think we want to belong to something. And it's also about longing. And maybe it's about longing for the way things were, or maybe we're longing for what we never had. So that's sort of, and of course, there's some murdery stuff thrown in.
Because what would a summer be without murder at the resort?
I have to throw some murdery stuff in.
You got to do that. Now, I have to tell you, I spent time at Sea Island. My parents honeymooned there. My dad spent 2 years at the University of Georgia. So we went down there for one of their umpteen anniversaries. They brought us all down. So I was picturing that hotel while we were sitting there reading. I was like, is it this? But when it was pink, I was thinking of the Boca Raton Hotel down in Florida, which was always the pink hotel.
Right.
And I just think that, there's no need to name it, but did you spend time, really an all expense paid trip up to Sea Island just to do some research and look around and check that Bellman out and see what they're doing? Like, did you have to do that?
I had actually spent some time there, not on my own dime. I have a friend who was a member of the North Carolina Bar Examiners, and they would go down to the cloister every summer in August when it's hot and buggy.
Yeah, yeah.
And she would get a suite. And so they would be in the conference room grading um, bar exams all day, and I would be in the room for 2 or 3 days in the lap of luxury. But I was always writing and sitting out on the balcony, looking out at the marsh and the river. And I think all of that sort of just absorbed into my body, along with the bug bites and the humidity.
It's just this iconic, like perfect location because you've got the beach and you've got the hotel and you've got that pool, that large pool where you definitely are seeing all classes of society in. And you're watching, who are the people who are members of, there. And then there are us that were just there on vacation. And we definitely stood out from New Jersey because we were completely different from, we didn't have our correct color umbrella and our correct tote bag. We had the correct one for New Jersey, just not for Sea Island, So, you know, um, people who were members, you were talking about the Saints and the Aints. Did you have that from the start? So that was really what you were thinking of. So you've got a girl who's really on the outside of the tracks coming in. That was one of the first themes that you were playing around with.
Yeah, I knew that Tracy marries into that family, and they never let her forget that she's an ain't. And I, as a teenager, there was a little hotel in our town, and you could have a membership to the pool. And as teenagers, our parents were members, and it was not anything like this, but we would run around. We had the run of the place. And the guys, the first job they had, a lot of them was as a lifeguard or as a sailing instructor. So I think I kind of pulled my memory of that out, but it's totally not anywhere near as fancy or as exclusive as the Saint.
No, we belonged to a swim club, and it was the same thing though. It was in North Caldwell, and we didn't live in North Caldwell. And there were a certain group of kids that were North Caldwell kids, and they more likely were the lifeguards. They more likely were working at the stand because they
Right.
knew all the families. They saw each other year round. We didn't. Now, there's more than one mystery layered into this book, more than one. You overdid yourself here, my darling, and you did it so well. And each one has its own backstory, as well as something that actually gets solved. Like nothing's hanging by the end. But at the beginning, folks, there are all these little tentacles all over here. Did you start with just one and then ramp it up? Or did you say, oh, I'm going for all these different directions?
I knew from the very beginning that this little boy, Hudson, his family are members. They're renting a cottage at the Saint for the summer, and I knew that something bad would happen to him. And I actually thought I was going to open the book with that, and my editor wouldn't let me. She said it was too much of a downer.
No, it's like what do they say? In the UK, you can get away with that, but you can't get away with it in the US. Like no
No.
lies in the first
And
couple of
so,
pages. No.
yeah, so it took me a while to get the beginning of the book, the preface, in place. And I finally had to think about, okay, what does Tracy think about? And she thinks about how she was always fascinated with this place. It was always something magical and mysterious to her. And then I knew that there would be another murder. I didn't know exactly who it was or how it happened. And so that all sort of happened. I tell people I'm not really a plotter.
Mhm.
I'm not a pantser. I'm a plotzer.
Right.
So I sort of do a little of both, and then try to work through the issues. And there are always a ton of issues.
Yeah. There's always time getting started. I love when I think I saw you, it was last July or August, and you said, well, I've got a draft. It's really messy. And it's going to be a book next year. It's going to come out, everybody. But right now, it's kind of a mess. And I think that the first draft is always a mess because you're just throwing your ideas out. It's like, here's everything. Now we have to see how it all works. Like the little child can't be dead at the beginning. We have to move him inside. Something else has to happen. So there's also the love interest. And oh, yes, it's like perfect, perfect. There are multi actual kind of like interests going on because that's what happens in kind of resorts where people are, put together like this. But it's
Yeah.
fun to see how this one plays through. And you seem to love writing those moments. Yes, you love writing the mystery, but you love having Tracy get some happiness and watching her pull in and pull out. And am I going to do this or am I not? Or do I care or should I not? And we're in her head saying, am I doing the right thing? Am I going too far? And I just love that. Did you have fun writing her?
I did. I knew that, I have an unspoken promise to my readers, and that's that I'm going to leave them with a happy, hopeful ending. I never know how I'm going to get there.
Everyone's dead, but we'll get there
Every,
soon, folks.
yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I knew about Waylon, who is her love interest. He's sort of, I love the idea of a stranger comes to town, and that's such a catalyst.
Mhm.
So many books. It's like Shane, the stranger comes to town and then things happen. So I knew that a stranger would come to the saint. I didn't know how I was going to get him there. I knew what he was after, what he thought he was after. And so that was a fun. And of course I love writing a meet cute. Love, love, love.
Yeah, and they definitely meet cute. And then I did love when they go on the little private beach and she says, you don't go in the water here, but you can hang out here. I just love that she knows the little secret places. She knows the places that, you can get away with. But then she's also questioning herself at times too. Like, is this going too fast? Like, what am I doing? I'm running the hotel. Is this okay? And I love being inside her head on all those ideas. And I think it's what every girl goes through. Let's face it, when you're dating, is this okay or not?
I have a dim memory of it, but
I don't know. I just hear enough stories and it's like really funny because we have one person in our group who's dating and we love like, are you going out with him still? Like, what's going on? Because bring up memories for all of us of, like what happened. I thought that you have a really good thought here on the page that's money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you choices. And I feel like that should be on a frame someplace. Like, you know how you've got read more books behind you? If that one hasn't been made yet, it should. And I think that that's something that people really have to think about because how much money do you need to be able to have the choices? And I
right.
love that line. And is that a line you kind of like live your life by too? Is like,
I think I sort of as Tracy's best friend is Shannon, and they've been lifelong friends. And then there's an estrangement, and Shannon's had kind of a rough road. She's a single mom, and as I was thinking about her,
Mhm.
about Shannon, I was thinking about the choices that she had and didn't have. And I think that really kind of influenced me. And I think if you've grown up as I did with a working class family,
Mhm.
you don't know that there are choices.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like, oh, there's a different menu. I always tell people you never know you're on the concierge level till you walk out and it's like, oh, okay, this is how it is.
Look at all the food out there. And I didn't get that on floor 6. 12 is where it's happening. Yeah, with special
That's
days.
so much.
Yeah.
That's so much of life. Yeah.
And that's just the way things go. But I think that's a really good thought because sometimes people say, how much money do you have to have? And I think it's here just saying enough to have choices of what you want to do, to not be pigeonholed into either a career or a marriage or a house or a life or anything. And I think if you kind of keep that in mind, you'll be a lot happier as time goes on as well,
Yes,
because how much
definitely.
happy do you need? That's your level.
Yeah.
You also you talked a little bit before about the dichotomy because between who works at the hotel and they have no place to live. And this is a huge problem on resorts across the country. I mean, in Colorado, there are people that drive an hour to be a maid in a hotel in some of the
Yeah.
more swanky areas. So here, Tracy gets this great idea to convert this. I think it's a golf club, the former golf club shack. Is
It's
that what
the
it was?
cart barn. It's a golf
The cart
club.
barn, the cart barn.
Yeah, cart
And she
barn.
builds this dorm there. And I just love because it's like, okay, we're going to put these people over there. And it also sets a group of people in an area. There's also a common room where the guys are always messy. I just did love that part. And they're always gaming. They're always out there gaming. But then there can be something else that happens over there because you've created a whole new place and a whole new whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, that was a perfect setup in a lot of ways. We had this building. What do we do? And did you know, like from the start, oh, wait, I could put them over there? Or Carol, like you're giving me like more credit than I should have.
Well, I knew that the idea for the book came about because as I was traveling every summer, either we're down on Tybee Island where we have a beach house or other places, beach resort places, there's always help wanted signs.
Always.
And they can't staff up. Restaurants can't staff up, bars can't staff up, hotels can't, because the people who would work there can't afford to live there. And I've seen, I've seen as I keep my eyes open going around, how some hotels solve that problem. They bus people in. That's what happens at the actual on Sea Island. They send a bus over to pick people up from, as you said, an hour away.
Mhm.
So that was sort of the thing that started me thinking about, okay, this is at the heart of what has to happen in this book. She's got to get this hotel up and running. Her numbers are down. The hotel's numbers are down since the pandemic, and she just can't afford to not open up.
Mhm. Yeah, we're on a tight time frame, and this is what we're gonna do. But then you've got a whole cast of characters that's there, and then you can play with those characters at the
Yeah,
same
the group
time.
I was having fun with the group dynamic.
Yeah, they're embedded. They're embedded
Yeah.
in that place. And yeah, you definitely have fun with that, dynamic. I also love the epilogue. And when a book wraps, I always wonder what happened next. And you do that. And there was one thing that I was guessing, and yes, was right, like as time went on, as I sat there. And you tell us, but I feel like there's a great group of characters here that if you wanted to write about the Saint again, you've got them. And I just felt that if you ever need to do, like, I'm going to go back to a place, it's such resorts can be a whole different set of problems the next year, a whole different set of
Right.
mysteries going on the next year.
Right.
So,
All we need to do is convince a production company,
right.
and I'll let them solve that problem.
That with themselves. And yeah, this one is just perfect. It's just perfect for being one of those, especially where so much is happening right now that they want to have happen in like 8 episodes. And I can actually break this down. If Hollywood, if you're questioning, I can do it for you. I watch enough. I'll break it down for you. We could have one of those aha, and then you can do your dum at the end of it. It'll be perfectly fine. But I think that more and more as writers are writing, there is so much material that's in books right now that if they're just looking in the right place, we've got a story. And this one's got so much in it that we can play with. Listening,
Yeah.
Hollywood?
Yeah, I have a terrible tendency to put like 10 pounds of plot in a 5-pound bag.
Mhm. But that's really what these shows need, because you can't sit there and just have one thing happening the whole time. Even if you think about White Lotus and those shows, there's something happening over here, there's something happening over here. There's not just linearly moving along like this, which
Yeah.
that's what make these shows. Now, I have seen you and your notebooks on social media. I've seen you hold up your notebooks at events. And at the start, do you have just a few notes and the things go from there? I mean, tell me at the beginning of a story, and then you're going up against a wall, and maybe you go garden or cut down some flowers or go, like, I don't know, go out doing a little bit of shopping. Like you can do a little bit of, what
Estate
is it?
sailing, yeah.
Like, go out and go for a few more things to
Yeah,
fluff up
just a
the
few more
house,
things.
just
Yeah.
to fluff up the house a little bit.
Yeah, I was reaching over to grab one of the notebooks. Um this was last May. I date them. And at
Mhm.
that point I was calling the book Guest Relations.
Uh-huh.
So, I just start out what happens today and what needs to happen in the plot. And, I start with a synopsis that sort of, it's the blueprint for what I think the story will be.
Mhm.
My agent and my editor and I chat about it and bounce ideas off each other. And then I start, I write, in a linear way. I start at the beginning and I always have an eye toward how the hell am I going to wrap this up? But yeah, I just write in a very linear way.
Right. But then some of the other mysteries, that the little tentacles that come in like this, those can
Right.
come later because they're not the main story. If we're going to put these people, what else can happen here? What else
Right.
in this scenario?
Yeah, I had a plot question, and so I called the we are fortunate we have a great um lawyer who does our estate planning, and I called her and I was sounding her out for, I said I have this plot issue, and she sort of helped me, it was like being on telephone therapy. She sort of helped me unknot.
Mhm. This can happen, it can't happen. This could happen, and that would be bad. but this could happen to
Right.
be great.
Then
Yeah.
it's great because she gets so into it. She'll call me back and say, oh no, I know what I got an idea.
It's like, okay, okay, I got it. Let me write that down. Now you handwrite at the beginning. You do everything in handwriting from the beginning. And then when do you start typing?
I do a chapter at a time. So I will handwrite a chapter. Um, and then sometimes I don't even finish handwriting it. Sometimes as soon as I get some momentum built up, then I'll jump on my laptop
Okay.
and I'll type. But I go back and forth. And sometimes if I really need to work out a plot snarl, I'll, I'll cross things through and arrows, and I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and so it's pretty primitive, but it works for me. And
Yeah.
I have my little weird, idiosyncrasies. I have to date the top of the page to say what day am I writing and where I am, because I'm not always at home.
Hmm. That's from Catholic school, I think. You went to Catholic school at the date.
No, my parents couldn't afford Catholic school.
We went to Catholic school with the date at the top of the page and cursive handwriting. My handwriting is so bad that if I wrote a book, I'd have to have somebody come over and be like an archaeological dig. Could you just tell me what I wrote here? Because I have no idea what I wrote down. So
Yeah, if I weren't, deciphering it the same day or the next day, I wouldn't know what the hell I just written.
yeah. And if you get to a point where you have to research something, just leave a line and say, figure out. Like if it's like how
Yeah,
much something costs or
yes. And numbers are my downfall. I'm uh terrible at numbers and dates and stuff. Um, yeah, I'll get to a point and go, okay, I don't know exactly. For instance, there's a fire
mhm,
in the book, and I didn't know um how many firemen would respond, what would happen if the fire, so then I had to stop what I was doing and find an arson investigator. And I used to know an arson investigator when I was writing straight mystery.
mhm.
He was a big fan and he'd always come to my book signings, but he's long retired. So I had to stop that and call around, see if I could find an arson investigator and then work from there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think for me, I know so many writers who do this deep dive and they just research and research and research. I don't do it that way. It's just sort of I just need this much.
Hmm. Hmm.
I have a wide but very shallow
Yeah, it's like this is where we're going. We'll
foundation.
figure this out when we get to it. And who
Right.
knows what if something in the news will spark something or whatever that will give me my answer too. Because you just don't know at any given time what's gonna come your way too, you know? So you're outlining, it might just go all into place, and then you get this like, okay, messy first draft. Is that when your agent and editor see it, or at what point do they get to see it?
Well, they're reading over my shoulder at my request.
Mhm.
It's not how they would like to have it happen. They would like me to hand them a nice finished draft. But I think it goes back to my newspaper background. I need instant gratification. I need to know I'm writing on such a tight deadline. I need to know if I'm going down the wrong road.
Mhm.
And so if I'm encountering a problem or whatever, or my editor's getting, really antsy, where the hell is the book? Then I'll send her a batch of chapters. And then, there came a point pretty early in the book where the person that I thought was a murderer, my editor said, absolutely not.
Wow. Wow.
And I had thought from the very beginning I knew who it was. And she put out her hand and said, hold the phone. And she had I have to give all credit where credit is due to Jennifer Enderlin. She had a much better idea.
Oh, I love that. Because it's a collaboration at the same time. You're writing, but you've also got to get that feedback because sometimes you're so deep into it. You're so deep in the story. You're like, but wait a second. If we did this, this, and this, it's going to make it a bigger book. It's going to make it a stronger story.
Yeah, I think one problem beginning writers have is that they think their words are so precious,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they won't take editorial advice,
Hmm.
and that's such a huge mistake. And I was a newspaper reporter for 14 years, and I had a lot of dreadful editors, but I was lucky enough to have a couple of good editors who knew how to make something better without putting their footprint all over it. And there's such a difference. And I I've encountered an editor who said, put this word in here. This is a great word. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You just, no. But you have to, I think, you have to, for one thing, there's a level of trust.
Mm-hmm. There's a level of trust of them to you as the author and you to them as they're going to steer you. And they're going to say to you, I think you can move this and it's going to be better. And you'll see it because you trusted they've done it before. They've said it before.
You're hopefully you have the privilege, and I do have that privilege of working with people, especially Jennifer Enderlin, my editor, and the editors I had at Harper too, who had really good instincts about fiction. And I write commercial fiction. I'm proud to be writing commercial fiction. When people say, what kind of books do you write? I write the kind of books people read.
That's exactly. Yeah. And somebody said to me once, I would love to go win an award. And I said, how many did you sell? And he said, 1,500. I said, you're eligible. So he said to me, really? I said, oh, you're totally eligible. I said, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get an award. You're going to get the reward or you're going to get the money. Let's go for the money. So I said, maybe the next book is going to be a little bigger, but this time the reward could happen. It didn't though.
Yeah, I think it's best if the reward is that you feel good about the book once it's on somebody's shelf, or the reward is somebody tells you. I've never forgotten, I got an email from someone who said their mother was in hospice care and she was sitting at her mother's bedside. Her mother was a fan and they were reading, I think it might have been The Fixer Upper together. And she said, every night I would sit beside her bed and the only light in the room was the light illuminating us. And she held on.
Oh,
And I thought, what a privilege.
it is. It is.
Privilege that I get to affect someone's life like that.
And it's a privilege also that people look forward to your book. Like I am looking forward. This is an event. And I think the beginning of your tour, a lot of people wouldn't have read the book, but then as time goes on, people at the signing table are talking to you. And it's that moment of, I did it. I absolutely did create what I thought I was going to create and they're enjoying it and they got it. And it's like, that's the impetus to go do the next one. Then you're like, okay, I can go do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I always start out thinking, what the hell did I get myself into? I don't know how to do this.
I've been to your events in New Jersey. I mean, big crowds. I can't even picture what it's like down in the South, but you draw a big audience and the audience is there because they know that you've delivered before and they're just looking to have fun again. They're really just looking to, go there.
That's all I want to give them.
Yeah, that's it. So this wasn't always the title. So when did it become Summers at the Saint? Did that take a long time?
Yeah. Yeah. I started out thinking it was called the Summer Help. And then we decided that would not be a good thing. It's not politically correct. And I like the idea of guest relations, and the team was not that enthusiastic about it. And then, so we sort of did the word soup thing where you throw a bunch of words in that could work. And I think I was driving it somewhere and I thought, oh, Summer's at the Saint. Maybe that would work.
Wow. And they pulled off the side of the road and you called and you said, before I forget this, it's Summers at the Saint,
Yeah, it's a total collaboration.
Yeah, but it completely works. It's a summer book. And I love the cover, my favorite color. I'm trying to get this so that it's not like it's doing its thing. But how about the cover? Did you have a lot of, oh, there we go. Did you have a lot of, was this the first one you saw or were there a lot of playing around?
Mike Storing's the longtime art director at St. Martin's, and he's done most of my covers. He gave us 2 or 3 or 4 options, but as soon as we all saw this one, we were like, yeah, that's it. That's the cover.
Yeah.
We want, Jen says we always want a cover that's celebratory looking. I always think about, I want it to be like, if you're walking past an airport newsstand and you see it there, you got to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like it's got 5 stars, like already. It deserved the 5 stars. They're all right there. It's like right on the cover. We knew from the beginning, this is a 5-star book. So I loved it. Looking at it, I can picture people reading it on the beach. It's like, towel to match. We get a couple of different colors. We can go in here, definitely got to do some decorating going with it. Yeah. So Kathleen McInerney has narrated the audio and she's done the last couple of your books. She's
done most of my books first. Yeah, she's done, I don't know, I think maybe all but the first one I did with St. Martin's, and that's like 17, 18 books. Yeah,
she just has the right voice, listen and feel. I was listening to her this morning and I was like, yep, there's the voice that I would be expecting to hear.
Yeah, I just did an interview with Kathleen. We interviewed each other actually. It's going to be on a Friends in Fiction episode, but then they're also going to put it in the audiobook, which I think will be fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I think with the importance of audio, which I joke always used to be like your rights to Finland didn't really matter. And now I've had some people say to me they're selling more in audio than they're selling in print, which is like fascinating to me.
Yeah, it is to me
Whole
too.
generation that's really listening to audio, because they're audio listeners all day long anyway. That's how they get their news, weather, traffic, everything. They're not on cable, they're not doing all the things we were.
No, I
So
think it's been a huge change, and I've been just real lucky that the Macmillan Audio team
they're
they're
great.
young and they have all kinds of ideas, and they're not stuck in a rut, and I love that.
No, I always get great ideas from them. And when I asked them this morning for a clip to go at the end of the podcast, I got it like that. I think it was like 15 minutes. And they said, does this
Right.
one, and what I really loved is they said, does this one work for you? And that was great because a lot of times people will give me something and I'm like, I don't know if that's the best one, but they were like, does it work? And it absolutely did work. They actually, think about it. So on tour, besides the fun of seeing readers and staying at nice places and maybe not losing your bag, stuff like that, do you get an idea? Like, can you get an idea while you're there and make some notes? Because you're on such tight deadlines for your books.
Sometimes I'll get an idea for a character or a piece of dialogue or an action. It never comes when I expect it.
Mm-mm.
It comes when I expect it. I think, it's like you have to be an open vessel. And my mind is, I always say, my mind is like a lint trap in the dryer. I never know what's going to collect there.
I
I pull
love
the lint
that.
trap out and look at it and go, oh, okay. Yeah, that I could do something with that.
I could do something with that. So with that in mind, what's next for you?
Well, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm
Mm.
going to write a book. It starts in Savannah, two sisters. And their mom is something that we would call a fabulist, which most of us call a liar. Their mother just likes to lie. She
Oh,
makes up stories. And they've had this portrait in their family for generations. And their mother's always said, well, this is a member of the Irish aristocracy, which means we're Irish and we're aristocrats. They're an Irish family. And she's very famous, and it was painted by a very famous artist. And you girls don't ever let it go out of the family. The mom dies, and one of the sisters sees a story online that their painting has just sold at auction for $1.3 million.
wow. They're painting.
Their painting is of Lady Edwina Fitzgerald, and it is by a very famous artist. And the question is, do they have the real one or do they have a fake? Was their mother telling was there a kernel of truth in what she told them? So they go on a road trip to Ireland to find out the truth.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's like, yeah, we have at my parents' house, we have these people, they're supposedly like great great grandparents in these beautiful beveled frames. And next time I see my sister, I have to ask her, who's taking those? Because it's like, are these really the people? We've had them in the living room for years. So when you say that, immediately sparked, I'm like, where's it going to fit in my house? You can have those. Those can go to your house because I don't know where I'm going to put these things, but but I could just picture this as painting. And well, there's one mystery. You've got one.
There's one mystery, and yeah, what's the truth? And the sisters are kind of not getting along very well, as sisters do. And I just really wanted a tax write-off to take a trip to Ireland. My maiden name is Hogan,
Yeah.
and my grandparents were right off the boat. So I'm going to do a little family history situation, hoping to go in October.
Oh, nice. Nice, nice, nice. So that's for the summer book. So that's for the summer book next year.
Yeah.
That the tour, it will be a rapid writing session after I come back from Ireland.
Yeah.
I'm only Irish by name. I'm only Irish by name. And it's really interesting though, because when you get together with the family, it's like, how did everybody come over? And we're always looking at this. And every once in a while, you can't find some of the people on any of the dockets coming in. And my older son, Greg, who says, I think they were stowaways. Like I can't find anything on them. And I've been in there for days. So it's fun to sit there and just say, look, where did we really come from? How did we really get here?
Yeah, I have a cousin that has done some ancestry.com, and he found the ship's log, the manifest with my
Mhm.
grandmother's name on it. It turns out she came over on a White Star Line ship called the Cedric. It landed in New York. She came through Ellis Island with her older sister. And a few years later, her eventual husband also came over on the Cedric. And
Wow.
they both ended up in Chicago.
Well, it's like one of those stories. My mother's father is the only one that came over from the family. Everybody else stayed in Italy. So my mother and my father go to this town in Italy. They go, I think, a couple of times to go meet the people. And I said, so why did he come? And my mother goes, I didn't ask. And I'm just there like, oh, clearly not a mystery writer. Clearly not a mystery writer. Because I would have to know everything because there were multiple brothers and sisters and it wasn't poverty. And they all have homes in Rome as well as these other places. And I'm like, so we're going to go. And I said, I'm going to go ask the question. It's going to be
Yeah,
me. And the boys go, if you don't ask, we're asking. We got to know what really happened here.
that's right.
Well, always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks,
Guys,
Carol.
right now, this is the book for summer. You're going to really enjoy reading it. And if you don't get caught up in one of the mysteries, and if you don't want to go to a stay at a big resort after this, well, I'm sorry. I felt that way. That's my feeling. Summer does begin with MKA. This is the book to get your summer started. I already proved it. And I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Carol. Great to see you.
So much fun. Thanks so much, everybody. See you next time.